Gig Gab, episode 480 for Monday, May 5th, National Concert Day, 2025. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Gig Gab, the show by, for, and about working musicians here in Durham, New Hampshire. I'm Dave Hamilton, and today it's just us, because it's been a little while since it's been just us. I think the last time we did this, I was at NAMM, and about to leave NAMM, had kind of processed through all of that together as we did it. We've got so much of your feedback here to talk about today. Feedback at giggabpodcast.com, of course, is where most of that has come into. Our sponsor is factormeals.com/giggab50off, where that code giggab50off gets you can guess, 50% off. Yeah, that's right. I am recording this episode on Saturday afternoon, Saturday the 3rd, so truly just a couple days before it comes out, which has become atypical simply because of all the schedules that I've had to work out. That interview last week was with Scotty. I'm hearing background noise. I don't know why I'm hearing that. I don't know what that could possibly be. Am I? Yeah, the air conditioner kicked on. That's why. All right, it's going to be okay. We're going to live with it. It's like 80 degrees out, but it's supposed to start raining. Anyway, that interview with Scotty Baldwin that we just did was recorded like 5 weeks ago. I couldn't wait to get that out for obvious reasons. It's definitely become already one of our most popular episodes. But yeah. So I'm recording this on a Saturday afternoon. I actually have a gig tonight. We'll talk a little bit about that with Casual Gravity. I've got some things that I'm doing for that. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to get to your feedback. And the first one is from listener John, who wrote, I enjoy Gig Gab on Spotify. And this was back in February that John wrote this. I enjoy Gig Gab on Spotify, but the volume levels between Dave and the guest seems really different. In my experience, if I use a volume at which I can hear the guest, Dave is too loud, which makes it uncomfortable to listen. If I turn it down, of course, I can't hear the guest because I use headphones in a quiet room and I like the volume low. Just thought I would share. I like the podcast, but I had to skip some episodes since I can't find a comfortable volume. And that was the day that I learned that Spotify replaces the audio that I send it in the RSS feed with the audio from the video files, which is all recorded with StreamYard, and there's no easy way to balance those levels in a productive way. Generally works fine if you're watching the video because our brains process that a little bit differently, but for audio, I like to be really specific about things. And so all of the video has been pulled off of Spotify in order to ensure you get the quality audio that I'm producing here. So if you want to watch the video, they are all on YouTube. And yeah, so there you go. So that's from John. Thank you, John, for bringing that to my attention. I had no idea that this was how Spotify worked. And since then, I've been to Podcast Movement Evolutions, which happened in March in Chicago. And it was a thing that was discussed left and right. So, yeah, there you go. The second email comes from Brian, who says, hi, Dave. Durham, North Carolina, the other Durham, singing drummer Brian here. I recently bought a Logo bass drum head and put the port at the 6 o'clock position. This made it difficult to find a mic stand short enough to place my dynamic bass drum mic at the port. I abhor boom mics for bass drums. I bought the new Behringer BA 19A boundary microphone to bypass this issue, and it has worked great. I just set it on the Evans EQ pad inside the kick drum, and the XLR snakes right out of the port. Super clean, and I think it sounds great. I'm not the most discerning mic critic, but this $60 mic gets great reviews, and your long-lost brother, Alan Hamilton, YouTube sound guy, No relation as far as we know. Bought one at the same time and has been pleased with it too. Take care, and I look forward to the show. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I love that Behringer BA 19A. It is a clone, effectively, of the Shure Beta 91A, which is a similar thing. So if you don't know what we're talking about, it is a boundary microphone, which means it sits flat and is a condenser mic. It's got a little condenser in it, but it sits flat and has an XLR port on one side and a screen sort of on top, if you will, and the condenser is towards the opposite side of the microphone from where the screen, or from where the XLR port is. So you would put it in with the XLR port facing away from the beater, and then it will pick up everything in there. I've been using boundary mics a lot over the last 6 to 8 months in my kick drum, and they have become my favorite mics to use. They pick up so much of the warmth of the drum, so much of the attack, and so much so that I looked at what it would take to mount a boundary mic inside of my new Gretsch Brooklyn 22-inch kick. And so I set out to look at a few things, and I have in the other kick that I use on a routine basis live, that is my EAMS 20-inch kick. I had that built in 1998, I want to say 1997, with an AKG D112 inside it with a port on the side, which was great. It was because Eames custom built the kit for me. Joe McSweeney over there custom built the kit. He drilled all the things that I needed, so I literally have an XLR port on the side of my kick drum, and it's awesome. I did not have this Gretsch kit custom built, as you might imagine, and so I needed to figure out a way to have the mic mounted in there. I'm spoiled now. I have the mic mounted inside. I wanted to find a really great way of doing it, and because I have the May kit in my Eames drum, I looked at what May has, and I found that they have the May Monorail, and that you can buy it with all kinds of different mics. I mean, they sell it with whatever kind of mic you would want, but you can also buy it without a microphone. And so because I already owned a BA 19A for this kick drum, and I'd used it in there quite successfully several times basically the same way that Brian mentioned, sitting it on the Evans EQ pad that I do have in there. I figured, okay, well, let me just buy it without the without the microphone and put the microphone on. And so I actually worked with the folks. I worked with Randy May over at May Microphones, and they sent me this May Monorail to test out and put in there. I mounted the mic on there. They were very helpful. This May Monorail is a very, what's the right way to describe it? It mounts to the screws that are on the inside of your lugs. So there's no drilling required. It is a very solid piece of gear, and you mount it there. It's got shock mounts in 3 places, a shock mount for each of the mounts, because you mount it to the lug on one side, in the same spot on the front of the drum and the back of the drum. So it's inside. It sort of travels between the front head and the back head without touching either, because it's got shock mounts there. And then the mic itself travels along there's a big bar that connects these 2 pieces between the front and the back of the drum. And the mic can travel along that. You set it exactly where you want it, at exactly the angle you want it. And there's then a shock mount there as well for the mic. So the mic is super isolated from anything happening to the shell of the drum. It's all, I think it's anodized steel or anodized aircraft aluminum alloy. So it's super light, but super solid. And I will say this, it is super purpose built for what it does. It's very flexible in terms of all the adjustments you can make, but because it's made of anodized aluminum, it is is unforgiving in that you need to mount it exactly the way that it's built to be mounted, and then once you get it there, you can. There's a variety of different ways that you can get the cable into it. They make a kit that goes through the vent hole on the drum and then mounts to a tom nearby, or you could do what Brian's doing and just run a cable inside if you happen to have a port in the drum. But the mic inside sounds absolutely fantastic in there, and it really, really works well. I made some recordings, of course. Now, when I made the recordings, I had the drum separate in my studio here. And so I thought, well, I got to go get a bass drum pedal. So I went and grabbed my spare bass drum pedal. And there's something in this for each of you, or for three of you. I will decide. Three? Yeah, three. So I grabbed my spare bass drum pedal that I bring to every gig in the hopes that I never need to use it, but always have a spare because, that's like the other ABP in the world. If it's not always be performing, it's always be prepared. And so, yes, the Boy Scout in me comes out. I'm going to ask you a question because I did not think about how noisy this bass drum pedal is. So you will hear all the noise from this old bass drum pedal. I will mail a Gig Gab t-shirt in your size of choice to the first 3 people who either correctly identify what kind of pedal this is, and if you've had one of these, you know the noise, and you probably will be able to guess it. So the first 3 people that correctly identify the pedal, and or the first 3 people that send me an email about this that makes me laugh. So everybody gets to participate in this, and feedback at giggabpodcast.com. But I have let's see, I have 3 recordings to play. One is what it sounds like totally dry inside this drum. So let's play that first. That's literally dry. No processing, no compression, certainly no EQ. So you can hear all of that roundness and the good beater attack. And this is sitting about halfway back in the drum. As I said, you can position it anywhere you want. I messed around with it for a little bit and found the right spot. About halfway back in the drum, not in the center of the drum, though. I have it kind of angled so that it's down off center, because I figured right in the middle of the drum would be the kind of the spot where square waves might manifest themselves. So I kind of brought it off center. So let's listen to that one more time. This is the dry version. Yeah. I mean, even that sounds great. Then I applied a little bit of EQ to it because, I mean, why wouldn't I, right? Just to clean up the low end. Right? To take some of that low end woof out of it because again, for live, that low end woof can really get in the way. So, here's the difference between, and then here's the EQ'd version. Just a little drier. And really, that's just EQ with a little bit of mids, like low mid scoop, and then a high pass filter to cut out some of that low end. And then I added some compression to that because why wouldn't you? And maybe a gate. So we'll go back to dry for a second, and then we'll go to the compressed version. There's it dry. Compressed. EQ'd. So that is the Behringer BA-19A, which is it's about $60 right now, versus the Shure mic, which is, I think, about 200 and something. So the Behringer clone of this works really well. I've been using it, specifically that microphone, at a lot of gigs and have not been kind to it in terms of what I do. I shouldn't admit this, but I will. I have actually been just throwing it in the case with my DW bass drum pedal, not the bass drum pedal that you heard on all those examples, that one's much quieter. But I've literally just been throwing it in the case and letting it bang around in there against a metal kick drum pedal, which I know I shouldn't be doing, both for the pedal's sake and, of course, for the microphone's sake. But it still sounds great. So it is roadworthy for sure, and it's like $60. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And then, of course, all on the May Monorail. May also has something really interesting called the Turbo Kick, which is a microphone that sits, it is self-contained. It sits outside of your kick drum. You've seen these at concerts, I'm sure, or things like them. It's a huge microphone that sits outside of the kick drum to really get that low end. It's got its own stand, so it's truly self-contained. You can set the height of it, and it's got a tunable port on it to kind of adjust the sound and let air in or out. And it, of course, is shock mounted and has a 20 dB pad built in. So that's also worth checking out, because that combined with a boundary mic inside, then you get a lot of low end energy without it being woofy. So that low end kind of woofiness that I tuned out of the Behringer, the BA-19A, can all come back with come back in a more controlled way with this Turbo Kick. And for those of you who know that microphone, that is flat. The Behringer, the Behringer and the Shure boundary mics have a switch that will effectively EQ it the way that I did, at least pulling out the low mids. It doesn't pull out it doesn't have a high pass filter, but it pulls out some of those low mids. But I figured, well, better to leave the mic in its natural form. It's super easy to EQ things out. But if you, for some reason, want more of that, then the switch might pull out. Well, you're out of luck if you can't easily access that switch. So EQ is easier than finding the switch. But again, feedback at giggabpodcast.com. Identify the kick drum pedal and or make me laugh. The first 3 people that do that I'll send you a Gig Gab t-shirt. It says always be performing on one side, has the Gig Gab logo on the other, and I'll let you pick your color, black or purple, and your size, of course, and we will send that off to you. These are unavailable currently to anyone else. We haven't opened up the Gig Gab store yet, so you cannot buy Gig Gab merch, but that's coming, as you might imagine. All right, fun stuff. Where are we here? More listener feedback. Brad has a question, and I loved this because it really, it combines sort of several of my worlds, the music world, obviously, playing in bands, and also the advertising world. And it just made me start thinking. Brad says, a company needs to get credit, get some benefit for whatever support it supplies. Cover bands don't really inspire merchandise sales. I'm not sure there is a lot to get in return for supporting cover music. And this got me thinking. This was a comment on, I don't know, some, probably Cover Band Central or something like that. But it was talking about endorsements and, can you, as a cover band, can you get a deal from like your favorite equipment manufacturer or things like that? And the answer is yes, you certainly can. Depending on the level of your cover band, you might just get an artist discount deal, or you might be able to get free gear from them, depending on how big of an audience and following you attract. But here's the thing about all this, right? Cover bands don't attract audiences full of musicians, aka consumers of the gear. We all know this. So many of us that play in, especially cover bands, but in bands in general, don't get the opportunity to go out and see other bands as much as we would because we're out playing, right? So the question then kind of becomes, what types of customers do bands attract? Because once we answer that question, then we can seek out show sponsors, right, for our bands. So what's the answer to that question? For some bands, it might actually be products targeted toward women, right? If the majority of your audience is women, like think about who's in your audience, and then think about if you want to make a little more money at your gigs, like what products could you market to them? I don't know. There's things that you can do here. Why not take advantage of the people that are at your gigs, right? Like if you're in a hippie band, maybe find your local dispensary to see if they'll sponsor your rolling papers or something. I don't know. Those kinds of things. And then you just put their logo on stage next to your logo and, thanks to the club for having us and thanks to, so-and-so dispensary for supporting us. I don't know. Like things like that might work out okay, and they might open up the door for more opportunities, because then when somebody asks you, hey, will you do this gig for us for quote unquote exposure? Well, now suddenly you're actually able to monetize exposure. And if you can go and play big gigs where you're not earning money from the gig and essentially taking advantage of those people that want to pay an exposure bucks, well, if you can take those exposure bucks and go and sell them to someone else, you just got paid for that gig, and you might wind up getting paid even more than you thought. So that's something to think about. For your band, what kind of audience do you have? And answer that question, and then figure out what sponsors might work for that. And really, if you can't immediately come up with a sponsor that might work, our friend ChatGPT is really good at coming up with those kinds of ideas. The more you feed ChatGPT, the more information you feed it, the better the result is, right? Garbage in, garbage out, but quality in and quality out. So tell ChatGPT about your audience, where you are, all of those things, and see what it says. I'm curious to really explore this, because I think we're all leaving money on the table. So let's work together and see if we can find ways of either augmenting or perhaps even replacing some income, right? Because if you can get the right sponsors, wasn't it the Rolling Stones Steel Wheels tour in 1989 was the first time that a promoter went and found sponsors for a tour, and it was Budweiser that sponsored it. Ironically, last year's Rolling Stones tour was sponsored by AARP, and I love the difference between 1989 and 2024 from Budweiser to AARP. That's kind of funny. Like that's really funny. That might be an episode title, from Budweiser to AARP. Who's your favorite sponsor? While we're on the subject, let's. I want to tell you about our sponsor for this episode, because, well, you know our motto, right? Always be performing. But that gets tough when you're running on stale chips and cold pizza between gigs. And that's why I love Factor. They deliver fresh, chef-made meals that are dietitian approved and heat up in just 2 minutes. I just checked this week's menu, and guess what's back? One of my favorites, jalapeno sweet corn polenta and chicken with roasted peppers, cauliflower, and fajita butter. Yes, please. This thing, it's so good. Whether I'm squeezing in a quick dinner before a show or crashing afterwards, Factor's got my back. It's way better than panic ordering from a drive-thru with like 4% phone battery and zero dignity. With 45 weekly options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto, you get meals that fit your goals, and they really taste amazing. And they've got things like breakfasts and snacks and desserts, and they've got these great smoothies and things like that. Man, they're so good. Look, when you're juggling rehearsals, load-ins, and trying to remember your lyrics without your iPad or with your iPad, no judgment, food shouldn't be another stressor. Factor makes sure you're fueled, focused, and stage ready. So, eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/giggab50off and use code giggab50off to get, you guessed it, 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code giggab50off, GIGGAB 50OFF at factormeals.com/giggab50off for 50% off plus free shipping. And my thanks to Factor for sponsoring this episode. All right. I got an email or a message from Scott. It was late at night. He says, Dave, I just got done playing a 4-hour show playing hard rock and metal. those highlight capsules you recommended are definitely working. I don't feel like crap. Thank you. Thanks for the note, Scott. What I'm talking about is I mentioned on a recent episode, or maybe not so recent episode, that when I turned about, I don't know, 40, I guess, maybe 45, I noticed that after gigs, I would be dehydrated and would wake up in the middle of the night with leg cramps. If you have had this happen, you know exactly what I'm talking about and how much it sucks. And if you haven't had it happen, you want to do what you can to avoid this. And so I searched around and I found that cyclists have a lot in common with us musicians, right? Where they're exerting themselves for long stretches, sweating, not necessarily able to replenish like you normally would because things are kind of, going in a million directions. And that's where I found these capsules called Highlight, Hilyte. I'll put a link in the show notes for them. And they're capsules similar to what, or exactly what cyclists take to replenish your body. And the more I read about this, and of course, please, before you put anything in your body, look at what's in it, figure out, talk with your doctor. I have talked to my doctor about this. Make sure that you're not doing something that's counterindicated for whatever you have going on. Okay. With that out of the way, I looked at this and it was like, well, why wouldn't they be having Gatorade or something like it, right? That's got electrolytes and all the things that are in this, plus liquid. And the reason is that the general consensus is that Gatorade's great. It has all that stuff and the liquid's in there, and it basically flushes it right out of your system. Whereas if you take these capsules, it does not flush right out immediately and it tends to absorb more. So I definitely take one of these before and after a gig. They say for cyclists you can take up to 10 in a day. I've never taken that many. And I generally, now I take one before I go to sleep every night. Again, my doctor's aware. All's good. Make sure your doctor or whoever you have as your healthcare assistant is aware. But yeah, thank you, Scott, for bringing that up. Those things they're game changers for us, and I don't want to miss out on anyone, or I don't want anyone to miss out on that. Let's see, more from the mailbag. Paul, not Paul Kent, but Paul, listener Paul, wrote, big fan of the pod. If I could make a simple request, you can all make simple requests. This show is ours, right? I'm the steward of this here. I'm guiding things. Obviously, the last 18 months have been very, have involved a lot of change for the show because it's not just on autopilot where I know exactly, we know it's just going to be Dave and Paul every week except for those anomalies. Now, every week I'm scheduling different things and doing different things, and I'm following my muse because what else am I going to do? And looking at the things that are interesting to me because I know that we all, as podcasters, sort of self-select listeners that have similar interests. And so I trust my muse to sort of guide us all, but it doesn't just have to be me. So when Paul says, if I could make a simple request, the answer is always, he says, not sure how you feel about repeat guests, but another episode with Bruce Bennett would be awesome. Episode 460 is my favorite episode of all time. It's my go-to episode for when I've had a bad gig or rehearsal and I need a little motivation to keep going. I put the headphones on, walk the dogs, listen to you and Bruce, and I am ready to go again. I love his determination and desire to succeed, and I thought you did a great job of keeping the conversation focused. Thank you again, Paul. Paul, my thanks to you. And yes, I already kind of had it on the list to get Bruce back at some point, but I have it on the list to get a lot of people back. And there's no world, if I brought everyone back that I want to bring back, I would never be able to bring on anyone new. And obviously, I also like bringing on people new, but it is a balance. And when I started down this path of not having Paul Kent every week, my first thought was, well, eventually I'll find the people that will just get in rotation, and then it will just become either a single co-host if one happens to emerge, or a group of rotating co-hosts, and then that's that. Obviously, nothing's been settled yet. Here we are, almost 18 months in, right? 17 months in. And I'm constantly finding new, interesting people. If I had locked into something, we never would have had Scotty Baldwin on last week, which is amazing. We have the Mallet Brothers coming up next week. Really fun interview. An original band from Maine, and they have this is their full-time job. It's amazing. And it's a band you've probably not heard of, which is also very interesting that they are able to do this as their full-time job, and you probably have never heard of them. I had barely heard of them, and strangely, we play a lot of the same venues. Bitter Pill and the Mallet Brothers would actually be a perfect bill together, but we'd never synced up, but now we have, so we'll probably remedy all of that and do some gigs together. But I like being able to I like leaving room to bring people in. But if there are guests that you would like to hear from, either people that have been on the show, like Paul requested, or people who haven't been on the show, but you would like to hear them on this show, let me know. feedback@giggabpodcast.com. All right, let's see where I have Drew has an email for us, which is going to be relevant this evening. Drew said, I'm really enjoying the show, and I appreciate it anytime that Paul Kent makes a cameo return. Yep. He says, just a quick note to counter a comment that you made in a January episode in the Year in Review. He says, I also am one of those people who uses a split snake for the purpose of controlling my band's IEMs and or recording our own stems. So I've pondered the question of the impact of phantom power from two consoles when you're using a split snake. And this will go back to the comment I made in January, where I believe Drew is right, that I was incorrect. The comment I made in January about how if you've got two consoles and a split snake, one microphone needs phantom power, which console sends it phantom power, and is it a problem if both of them do? And I posited in that episode, perhaps more than posited, that would be bad to send two through. He says, so to continuing what Drew says, he says, I worried about this until I discovered Dave Ratt's video on the subject. His test matches my understanding from Electrical Engineering 101 class 40 years ago that voltage in series add to the voltage. So 48 volts, if they were in series to each other, would add to that and make it 96 volts. Whereas, and don't do public math ever, folks. But current in parallel will not. It will add amperage, but not voltage. And he says, so that is, a mic is not going to get hit with 96 volts of phantom power, but we'll see twice the current, which is okay because it will draw just as much current as it needs, and it doesn't matter where it gets it from. And I went and watched the Dave Ratt video that he linked to, and I will link to it in the show notes for this episode at giggabpodcast.com. And sure enough, he is correct. And he proved it out. He uses a voltmeter and all that stuff. And so thank you, Drew, for sharing that. And yes, it means that something like the seismic audio split snake that, I think a 16 channel one is less than $300. And something like that would work really well for your band. And that's a good thing because it's so great to be able to do that. So actually, they've got a 24 channel send for $299. So I'll link to all of this stuff. A 16 channel split snake from Seismic is $249.99. Like, yeah, this is almost a no brainer. And if you're doing a gig like I am doing tonight, that might come in really handy because we're playing at a casino, the Revo Casino here in Dover, New Hampshire, which is a couple towns, actually one town over from me. And I reached out to the sound engineer ahead of time, as I tried to do. I sent them a stage plot. He was very appreciative to get a stage plot that wasn't written on a cocktail napkin, in his words. So happy to sort of make friends with the sound engineer before I meet him. And I said, great, here's what we need. We're all on in-ears. And I explained what we need from him to make that work, which is fairly standard. We just we all need XLR feeds. Three of our guys, the three who aren't Dave, use wireless, and they have a unit for that. And then I just take a feedback by the drums because I don't tend to leave the drums much and therefore don't need to manage wireless and a battery. And I said, so here's how it's going to work. And also, if it's possible, we are fairly technically savvy and would be happy to mix our own ears and save you the headache, connect with our iPads and things like that. And I heard back from him, and he said, yeah, all that sounds great. Thank you, obviously, for the stage plot, but I cannot give you access to the Wi-Fi for the mixer because the IT team here has locked things down and we're not permitted to give out access. He said, so we can do one of two things. Number one, I can mix your ears for you. He says, I'm very confident with it and comfortable with it, and I'm sure we can make it work. Or he says, I have a built-in split snake, and if you want to bring your own mixer to mix your own ears, you are more than welcome. And so obviously, that's what we're going to do. Plan B is actually plan A, because this way, it doesn't matter what he does with gains. It doesn't matter what he does with EQs. We get to mix our own ears for us and only for us. And whatever we want to do is for us. And whatever he wants to do is for him. And so he has a 16-channel split snake, which is more than enough for casual gravity. And so I'm very stoked to try that out tonight without having to first invest in a split snake, because one already exists at the club. So I'm excited about seeing how that works, and I'll report back. I actually toyed with the idea of waiting to record this episode until after the gig, but I don't know. Clearly, I did not. I guess if there's some, you know what? There's no rules here. If there's something to be said, I can always record another short episode and put it out on the feed, right? There's no rules as far as I know. We still don't have to play by the rules here. What are the rules? I don't know. The rules are what we make up together. Speaking of rules, I played an ABBA tribute gig earlier this year, a couple of months ago, and it was I mentioned it in a couple of the episodes that have come since then, and it was one of those gigs where we would have loved to have another rehearsal, because we were familiar as a band, and I can kind of speak collectively of us, even though I'm sure I'm not getting it exactly right. But as a band, I would say we were familiar with maybe 30% of the material, and then the rest were songs we had never heard before. And that gets tricky when you're doing a one-off cabaret, because you're not going to get enough time with the music to just internalize it and, quote unquote, as I like to say, know the songs or know how they go. So there was a decent amount of charting. We talked through a lot of things, but one thing that was really important was tempos. And I don't know the tempos of songs that I don't know. Like in the middle of a gig on stage, I'm bound to get the tempo wrong for a song I've been playing for 30 years, let alone a song that I've been playing for, less than 30 days. And so I use the app Fourscore on my iPad, and Fourscore lets me put a metronome in it. And I've used it over the years for several things. And I basically, you can have it do either audio or visual. I have done visual for the most part. In fact, exclusively up until recently, where it just flashes like the edges of the screen. And it's fine, but our brains take a little bit to adapt from seeing a flash to converting that to like where our bodies and the right parts of our brains, the correct parts of our brains know the tempo. So I thought, well, I mean, I can feed a signal out of my iPad into a mixer and hear the click. So for that ABBA gig was the first time that I did that. And one cool thing about Fourscore is it lets me set per song, in fact, how long I want the click to play. So I can just have it play indefinitely until I turn it off, or I can have it play for 10 measures or 11 measures or 30 measures, however I want. And so for starting songs and knowing where the click is, I just kind of go through each song and set it to 10 measures. And I got a little cable for my iPad that goes from the headphone jack out to a 1/4-inch jack, and I can either plug that into a mixer if it has a 1/4-inch input, or plug it into a direct DI box, a direct input box, and then make it XLR, and we're good to go. And it worked amazingly well. And the band can also choose to hear the click or not. Everybody had their own ears that they were mixing. And it made that gig so much better. The only song where it was a mess, no, it wasn't a mess. where I noticed it and sort of laughed was the very last song of the night was, as you might guess, Dancing Queen. That song is slower than you think. And so but it was fine. I put the click in. We had, rehearsed it with me counting it in based on the click. But we had not rehearsed it with hearing the click in our ears. And so I got the click going and I counted the song in. And, I think it's like 105 or something. Like, it's pretty slow for a dance song. And as soon as the band came in, we were suddenly like 8 to 10 BPM faster than the click. And so it was everything I could do to reach over and turn the click off, obviously. But it was just really funny to notice that, like, oh, look at this. We sped it up. And it could, I say we, it may well have been me. I don't know what happened there, but it was really kind of funny. But it worked out great. Obviously, it was totally fine. But using the click at gigs has been super handy, and I used it at a couple of Casual Gravity gigs, and I definitely plan to use it tonight. It's really nice to have that frame of reference just to start songs and know that we're starting them where we like to have them, because there can be those moments where you're distracted or adrenaline or both, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just count it in here, and then you get 2 bars into the song and you're like, oh man, that sucks, it's too fast, or oh, it's too slow. Too slow is okay. I mean, neither one is great. But if I had to pick one, I would choose too slow, because speeding up a song is something you can usually get away with in a live setting. Slowing down a song, especially if people are dancing, is almost a no-no as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if it's a total disaster, then you just got to do it. But otherwise, if people are moving and you can survive the tempo that you're at, leave it there. People do not like to be slowed down. But yeah, so... All right. What are we doing here? We have a lot of stuff to talk about. What do you use as your gig bag? Like your onstage purse, if you will. I've used a red bag, just a canvas bag for the longest time. I found a backpack that works really well for me on stage. It's the laptop compartment is actually accessible from the outside of the bag, and that's where I put my iPads. Yes, I bring more than one iPad to a gig. I said always be prepared, right? But this backpack works out really well. I'm curious what you folks use as your gig bag, and let me know. Let us know, and I'll share feedback at giggabpodcast.com. Speaking of Gear Gab, there have been 2 things that have come up that basically both serve the same purpose, and one of them is called the Optogate. And the idea behind this is that it mutes or ducks the volume of a vocal microphone when you're not singing into it. So this first one is called the Optogate at optogatemicSwitch.com. It will be linked in the show notes. And it is a little pass-through device that has an XLR male on one side and a female on the other. You plug one end into the microphone, you plug the cable into the other end, and then it watches to see how close you are, or something is, to the microphone. And of course, you can set it and choose to turn the microphone, or duck the microphone, or not duck the microphone. Then it's a quiet mute switch, of course, so you're not hearing clicking or anything like that. But it does help when you're standing in front of the microphone, especially for people who are downstage with drums in the traditional spot of upstage center. When you're downstage, if you get a lead singer, or a guitar player, or whatever, when they're in front of their mic, they are blocking. They are as listener of the show and my friend Andy Dolph says, that they are a variable low pass filter, because they let the low pass through when they're standing in front of the mic, but not the high pass. And but when you move out of the way, of course, it can pick up a lot of the drums or amplifiers behind them, or whatever it is. With this, it gets rid of that, and that can be a good thing. So the Optogate helps to fix that, and they sell it, I'm seeing, for $250. While I was at South by Southwest, while I was at NAMM, I found another thing to do this called the Lily Pad. This is LILYP4D. And the Lily pad is literally a pressure sensitive pad that you stand on, and it comes in two sizes. And it's the small one I think is called the Traveler, and it's got the pad and then a little device that has your XLR cables that sort of go through it, and you can choose how it works. And in fact, there's even a little bypass switch on it. But it's $280 for the Lily pad, and bands like Sturgill Simpson and Moe and Billy Strings are using the Lily pad, the Billy pad, out there too. So I will put links to both of these things in the show notes because I can see them being quite valuable for a lot of us. So yeah, there's a travel size which is 10 by 15 inch, and that I tested both of these at South by South at NAMM. Sorry. And this Lily pad works great. Like you do not need to put a lot of pressure on this. It's not like you have to hop on the thing. You just casually step on it. You can step on the edge of it. You don't have to like get both feet on it or anything. It's really well tuned. So there's the travel size, which is 10 inches by 15 inches, which is probably what we all would use. Well, I say we all. Singing drummers, not so much. But and then there's the arena size, which is 24 by 36. But yeah, it's an interesting thing and allows you to have more going on and more gain with your microphone without having to hear everything all of the time. And speaking of more gain from your microphone, I probably a year ago now, Mackie sent me the EM-89D, which is a handheld cardioid pattern dynamic vocal mic. It is a $50 microphone. I'll be candid here. I didn't have high hopes for this because it's a $50 vocal microphone. I figured, okay, well, this thing isn't going to be something I would ever want to rely on. I had a Heil PR35 plugged in here in the studio into a channel. Now, the PR35 is a super high gain. It's a fantastic microphone. Super high gain, though. And so if I were to replace it with anything, I'd probably have to go over to the mixer and crank the gain to get things balanced out. I put this EM-89D right on that same stand in the same XLR, and I changed nothing. No gain changes, no EQ. And this thing punched out of the monitors. I was really impressed. It sounds good. It's got a good kind of a pattern to it. And from a singer's standpoint, I was kind of able to move around with it. It feels good in the hand if you want to hold it. So it comes with and for $49, it comes with the microphone, a pouch, a clip for the mic that you can screw onto a stand, and an XLR cable. I know. It's crazy. So this is there's a name. Element, I think, is the series name of this, whatever. But it's the EM-89D. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. If you certainly if I needed to buy mics just to leave in the studio here, this would be the one. But it's also the mic that I'm throwing in my gig bag as a spare, because for $50, a mic that sounds good, has decent gain, high gain before feedback on this thing, it's pretty good. I was really impressed with it. So, let's see. I've mentioned South by Southwest unintentionally a few times. Obviously, I was there. It's interesting. I played a gig right after I was there, and at South by, most bands have, the vast majority of bands have 40-minute set times and 20 minutes to change over completely to get themselves off the stage and get the next band on the stage, or conversely, to get themselves on the stage and get the previous band off the stage. And there's like 5 bands a night at any given club, or maybe 6. So I watched a lot of line checks, if you will. And I watched the things that I learned from those line checks come out at the next gig that I played, because it was one of these gigs where I could not mix my ears. They just didn't have a Wi-Fi system for the mixer, it was at the Middle East in Boston, which is a club that's been around forever. I don't know why they don't have Wi-Fi for the mixer, but they don't. And so I couldn't mix from the stage. The sound engineer mixed for me. And I just needed to be very efficient because it was a multi-band gig and I needed to get what we needed done quickly. And so, I heard myself say to I said it to him, but I sort of laughed as I said it because it was definitely inspired by all the things I saw at South by. I was like, all right, for the vocals, give me everything at a fixed level and give my vocal 2 dB above that, and we're good to go. And the band all turned around to me. And they're like, well, you're being very, very specific. I'm like, well, that's what I want. I want all of you here. I want me a little bit above that, and we're good to go. And so just being at South by Southwest and watching all those sound checks definitely made that gigs and the rest of line checks and monitor mixes were just as efficient. And I had a fantastic monitor mix. It was certainly the best mix I've ever had that I did not do myself. And that's saying something. So there are always things to learn. And speaking of South by Southwest, they have changed their schedule for next year, as we mentioned, and so they sent along a statement about that, and I can't seem to find it. Oh, that's too bad. It would have been March. Yeah, I don't have it. But I will share what they said. They said that the dates have changed. It's an 8-day festival instead of a 10-day festival. In the past, South by has been, what's the right way to say this? In the past, South by has been interactive or tech first, and then music after that, with the film festival sort of spanning the whole range of things. And next year, it is an 8-day festival, and that's that. So I think I shared this on the episode, in a previous episode that we did, because now I'm finding the statement in my archive here. But for those of you that didn't hear that, they said it will be a shorter South by Southwest, which gives attendees more of a chance to be here for the entire run. And the conference, film, and TV and music festivals will all take place concurrently over those 7 days, so that everyone has a chance to experience the whole of South by Southwest. This means that the music festival is 1 day longer than it has been in the past. So I have plans to be there next year. I think Lisa's even going to join me next year, which is kind of amazing. But yeah. Let's see. We might as well stay with the Gear Gab side of things. Our friends at Waves put out a free plugin pack recently. This plugin pack is pretty amazing, and you can go get it now. There's a link in the show notes. It has 9 plugins. It's got a tube sort of compression, if you will, a harmonic distortion kind of thing to put in there if you want, a visual compressor, an EQ, a reverb, and then a synth patch. There's a thing in there called audio track, which is an EQ, a gate, and a compressor all in one. It's essentially your channel strip all in one from Waves, and some other effects as well. So just go get it. Even if you don't think you need it, go get it. And the link will be at giggabpodcast.com in the show notes for this episode 480. Because, man, why wouldn't you want to have these plugins for free? So go get that. I'm trying to think, what else do we have here? I have a question for all of you, and I'll share what we do here. But there's been several conversations online, and these will come up again and again and again. What do you use to keep your band coordinated, specifically for your calendar? How do you make sure that whoever needs to know when people are available or not available, how do you do this? I've used a couple of different systems over the years. The most popular one, of course, is to have a Google Calendar. And everybody goes into the Google Calendar and puts their blackout dates. And in Casual Gravity, we have 2 calendars that the band members can see and edit. One is the gigs calendar that has the gigs and details for the gigs. And then the other one is the blackout calendar. And if somebody can't do a date we have in that band, the rule is make sure that your Fridays and Saturdays are marked. if you have a blackout on another day, it certainly doesn't hurt to put it in there. But the Fridays and Saturdays, we generally only play in that band on Fridays and Saturdays. So that's how that works. But yeah, so and that works really well for that band. Everybody participates in it. Everybody keeps that up to date, and it's great because Tom, who's the one we had Tom Jarvis on the show. He's the one who coordinates with all the booking people that we as a band work with, and when he's on the phone with somebody, he can confidently tell them what dates are available and not available without having to have text messages back and forth with the whole band. It works really well. Some people don't find that Google Calendar works for their bands, but having some kind of system makes a huge difference. And so I'm curious what you use. And I have seen people talk about, in addition to Google Calendar, things like Band and Band Helper seem to be the two that come up quite a bit. The Band is at band.us. That's an app where you can coordinate for all kinds of things, including, of course, bands, but it could be a sports team or whatever. It doesn't matter. And then Band Helper is at bandhelper.com. These apps do more than just this. They'll do like set lists and things like that, which can be really helpful too. But I'm curious, what do you use in your band? Is it Band? Is it Band Helper? Is it Google Calendar? Is it something else? Let us know. Feedback at giggabpodcast.com. We'll share and yeah, that's that. All right, let's call it. I've been here an hour, so that's more than enough time. I'm curious though to hear what more you want or don't want from the show. This is our show. So what parts of what we've been doing are very interesting to you? What are only mildly interesting? And what are you not interested in at all? And let me know, because I want to make sure we're all doing this together. So feedback at giggabpodcast.com. Make sure you subscribe to our Instagram. We're doing more and more there, and that's really starting to do well. And it's just Gig Gab Podcast. And then I will ask that you sign up for our mailing list, which you can just go to giggabpodcast.com and sign up there. We don't spam you. We send out 2 emails a week. One is when the show goes out, and you get the show notes with all the links that I've been mentioning here, right? So you don't even have to remember to go to Gig Gab Podcast. You just have them in your inbox. And then a few days later, we do kind of a summary of the week with some of the highlights from the week's episode and other things. So if you would sign up for, that's my ask for this episode. Sign up for those 2 things. And thank you. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. I love that we get to do this. I love that I get to do this. Thank you. It's a privilege. You guys rock. Thanks so much. And now there is something we say. What is that? Oh yeah, always be performing. Later. Later.